Yep.
Hello and welcome to the Knit Girls. This is episode 280. I'm Laura, also known as Lala.
I'm Leslie, also known as You Don't Call Me Les. It is Monday, December 21st,
It is.
2015. Kobe's still in school. He'll be
That
in
is so
school
sad.
until Wednesday afternoon.
My nieces are in school till Wednesday afternoon as well. That's
Um,
very sad for them.
yes. Not
I'm
really, though, because so it's almost Christmas in the States.
I think
And,
it's almost Christmas
well,
everywhere.
I mean, I say in the States, I just mean that not everybody observes Christmas, so I'm trying to be inclusive. So
Hanukkah just ended, which was super cool seeing all the posts on Instagram.
Kwanzaa doesn't start until Christmas Day, I think. Not, I don't mean Hanukkah, I mean Kwanzaa, sorry.
Yeah, you said Kwanzaa, I
Oh,
believe.
okay. So anyway, Michael and I, Michael is my husband, we don't really buy things for each other for Christmas because it's 2015 and we just buy what we want ourselves when we want it.
Guess what Mama Linneman and Wheezy got for Christmas for each other? It's a joint gift.
Is it those orthopedic beds?
No, although that was a great present for each other. They got a ping pong table
Oh, that's cool.
and 55 ping pong balls.
They do not have confidence in their ability to retain the balls.
Wheezy's like, it was a deal on Amazon. They got the
Oh,
table at Costco, though. But it's not going to be there till after we leave. It got delayed.
aw, pudding.
I know. I told Wheezy he better prep his beer pong. I haven't played beer pong since
I've
college.
never played beer pong.
Really?
In
Oh,
fact, when I worked in Tunica, so I worked for a gaming company, primarily casinos, and when I worked in Tunica in Mississippi, um, I worked at one property which was sort of the belle of the ball when
yeah.
in that particular area.
A fancy
It was
property.
considered, nice and all that. And it was right next door to one that was more kind of, I don't want to say run down, but
Let's
like,
say honky tonky.
yeah, less upscale.
Yeah.
And one day I was walking through that, and they were both owned by the company I work for. And one day I was walking through that honky tonk one, headed to try to repair something. I don't remember what
Did
it
they
was.
have a beer pong
They
tournament?
had a beer pong table. I'm like, really? So that was actually the first time I saw beer pong ever.
Oh,
And I was in my
it,
30s at that point. So
it was college for me. It was big in the frat house community.
I'm not even sure how we got on this topic.
Ping pong
Um,
tables. So
this
you and Michael are not doing big presents for each other.
No, we did jointly purchase a headboard for our bed
Ooh.
because we're grown-ups and grown-ups should have a headboard. Um, I think, and then we put it together, and my back hurt like a grown-up, like a boring old person. But mostly we buy for Kobe, and so of
Yeah.
course he's an only child, and he's going to be spoiled for Christmas.
Yeah.
So we had already sort of went over our budget a little bit for him because he needed
Uh-huh.
like a new computer desk and a laptop for school and a couple other little things. But then Papa, my father, sent him. I told him that Kobe wanted a bicycle. He wants to buy a bike, and or he wanted a bike. Papa couldn't decide on a bike to send him, so he just sent him $300. And I'm like, in my entire life, I never got cash from my dad, not once. And then he just sends this 12-year-old kid $300. So stop counting and listen to me.
I was listening to you.
But you're
We got
counting.
$300. Are you gonna take him to like a fancy bike store?
No, probably not. I'll take him and he'll get like a mountain bike or, whatever I don't know, whatever kind of bike kids buy.
Cruisers.
Um, anyway, this is actually a knitting show
Sometimes.
sometimes when we remember. So, knitting, do you want to talk about yours or do you want me to talk?
Why don't you talk so I can get another row in?
I don't know
Because
that you'll get
counting to
that far.
two is like my superpower today.
Well, Laura's working on two things. One of them is patterned, And so before we started talking, it's only like a 4-stitch pattern, but it has
it
four
totally is.
totally different stitches. And she's like,
Knit purl.
no, but then
Yarn
there's like a
over.
yarn over and a knit
And
two
then
together.
a purl two
Yeah,
together.
so they're 4 totally different stitches. And she's like,
Yeah.
can I do this and record at the same time? And I'm like, no. And then within 30 seconds, she messed it up. And I'm like, I told you. I couldn't do that. I mean, all right. So knitting. I have remarkably little knitting this week because I've done some other crafting. Plus, I've been on call again because even though I thought I had finished my last on call,
Oh.
stuff happened at work. So we had to do some voluntolding for picking up.
Voluntolding is the best.
Yeah. So in one of my Bling Your String bags, I've got a sock blank from Gail's Art. This one was one of the Christmas ones. This was the December one, the special snowflake, and I totally am a special snowflake. So
You are.
it's mostly undyed with stenciled on colors, pink and purple and blue. I'm
Do
knitting
you think
this.
it was undyed or do you think it was dyed white? Because natural is usually a little bit more natural.
I don't know. It doesn't say. It's either white, like dyed white, or it's natural. I couldn't tell you. But I'm knitting them on high sharp size 2.25 millimeter US 1. I've turned the heel and started the gusset decreases. So, and last week I had just started the heel flap. So really that's maybe an hour and a half of knitting in a week. And that is all the knitting that I have done in a week.
Now you have some sweaters on the needles, though.
Haven't touched them.
Okay. Do you want to describe what sweaters you have on the needle?
Do you need more time?
Maybe.
I have Recoleta, which is a Joji Locatelli. It's out of Craft Seas Cloudborn, Highland Worsted. And that's in like a heather gray color. And then I've got Even Flow, also by Joji Locatelli. That one is out of Mustache's Sweater Girl.
Yeah, she just had an update the other night.
Mustache, not mustache. And it's on the Queen of Hearts colorway. So it's a really beautiful red. Those are my 2 sweaters. Are you at the end of your row yet?
Yeah, I can go. I didn't really need to. I felt like you needed more content, so I was helping you
I have
out.
some content later, but
That's true. So I just started by counting to 2s. A pair of socks for my brother-in-law. He really, I just lost my voice, sorry. He really, really likes hand-knit socks, and that's what he asked for Christmas.
what size foot does he have?
He and Beck actually wear the same size.
That's handy.
So it is pretty handy. His are a little bit wider, but overall, and I just typically do like a 2x2 rib all the way down for his socks. These are going to be a little bit thicker, A, because I need to give them to him on Friday, and I'm just getting started. But also because he asked for Christmas socks. Or that's what Beck told me I should knit him. And I had some very cool Christmas colored yarn, but most of it is in Blue Moon Fiber Arts medium weight. So this is Angry Elf.
It is a very Christmas color, but it's pretty too.
He's an angry elf. I haven't watched Elf yet this year.
I haven't watched it this year yet. I'll probably wait till Christmas.
I am knitting these, the very little bit that I have done, the ribbing, on size 3 millimeter signature double points. So that's like 2.5. It is more of a DK weight yarn, so it should knit up fairly fast. Leslie and I had a whole debate about how many stitches I should cast on, and I cast on 52. So we're gonna go from there and see how that looks. I think it looks about right. Just judging it from that itty bitty bit on the cuff. If it looks too small, like I'll try putting them on, and if it's too small, then I will rip them out and cast on with more stitches, probably 56. The reason why I'm knitting them on double points, because that is not my standard operating procedure, is he wants top down with a heel flap gusset. So I prefer to do that style sock on double points.
I love a man that's not a knitter who can specify, I want a top down sock.
Oh, he knows the type of
with
heels
the heel
that he
flap.
prefers. Like, he knows exactly what kind of heels he prefers, and he's got it going on. The other thing that's kind of scrunched up that requires counting to 4, which is beyond my
Not just
superpower
counting to
ability.
4, but concentration on each of the 4 stitches.
Yes, this is kind of squished up, but this is my Wild Goose Shawlette. I'm about to start the I'm doing the setup row at the bottom for the patterns, so it's being held together with my very cute Jelby.
Stitch stopper.
Yep, my sheep with a balloon. Um, Humberto ate the balloon off my other one, so that made me very sad. My other stitch marker, not my stitch stopper, but my stitch marker, he actually ate the balloon off. But Carrie's gonna fix it for me when I see her this week. It's down. Oh, it's down here. Here's the one with the half-eaten off balloon. It's so sad. Like, can you see that it's been dug out and it's got all these like little cat paw marks? So that is going. This is out of Shalimar Airy. And we'll be giving this skein away in a couple weeks. This is the Whale's Tails colorway. It is a merino mohair silk blend. It's 420 yards. It's a single. We're going to talk about singles a lot more later. So really nice yarn to work with. It's getting a nice little halo, and I'm knitting it on size 5 needles right now. So that is that. Those are, oh no, I have one more thing. In my giant fat squirrel pajama bag, I started the other day knitting a pair of wristers for one of my coworkers. So these are Maze by Tin Can Knits. She's got super tiny hands, so this is the smallest size, but really I might need to knit her another pair that's smaller because these fit me pretty well. So I think I might actually re-knit these for her using other gray yarn and size the child size because she's got like super tiny, skinny fingers, like non-adult sized hands. So these are out of, this is the first one, and it's out of Mission Falls 1824 wool. So I might, I'm going to stop at House of Yarn on my way through Wednesday, just to offer my condolences because their owner died
Suddenly
last Sunday, which is very, very sad, and our heart goes out to those people in that knitting community. But here's the second one. So I'll probably end up picking up like a DK weight and re-knitting these, and these are being knit magic looped on size 6. So almost done. And I did this while I was at work watching children.
Wow.
So yeah, we have an in-school suspension program, but then we've got an in-school suspension program that does like counseling and stuff like that. And the teacher who usually runs that program was not at work Friday. So I ended up with those kids, which is fine. They were fine for me. And I got breaks when they went to counseling, and they have to do community service, and they have to do exercise. They have like this whole thing. So it's more than just in-school suspension. And it's called RAMP. And I cannot remember what RAMP stands for right now because I've not had my full cup of coffee yet.
Yeah, we're recording in the morning.
Yes.
Well, not like it's noon almost for you.
It's noon almost for me, yes. It's past noon for you. So that's still, like, I actually slept in this morning. I have not slept in since, before, like, past 7 in, like, months. And I was up till 4 knitting.
And sometimes on the weekends, I'll wake up and it's like 12:30 in the afternoon, and I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah. I wish my body would allow that, but I'm like, now it's so trained.
If I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, I probably would be trained like you, but thank goodness that is not
like
the
a
case.
Pavlov dog for my Starbucks. So that is all that I have on the needles. I'm trying to think of anything else that I have.
Excuse me.
That's it. Just those things. So I think I am going to re-knit. I'm going to look for gray yarn here first, because I'm pretty sure I probably have enough to do. I think it calls for like 120 yards.
If I know you,
You think there's gray yarn
I
someplace?
think there is gray and there's purple yarn. In every weight,
I don't know. Like,
in lots of different combinations.
yeah, different fiber type. Now I'm looking around at my stash. There's a lot of fingering weight in my stash. There's not much else. So, we will see. And I want it to be super wash because
Yeah, because she's not a
really
knitter.
soft. She's not a knitter, and she's a smoker, so I want her to have something that's self-extinguishing.
I don't know if most smokers have accidents with lighting items on fire, but
Well, you have ash that comes off.
well, yeah, but I guess
If you're wearing mitts, I don't know. We're on like a totally off
I
topic.
don't even know.
But I want it to be machine washable too because she smokes because they'll start smelling of
Yeah.
smoke. They can go in the wash fairly easily. Okay, well, you have finished objects, and they are other sorts of crafting, so why don't you talk about those?
Yes, so I do have non-knitting finished objects, and I say finished, I've still got to like mount them. That sounds dirty. I've still got to like It's the
wasn't
equivalent
dirty until
of-
you said it was dirty.
of needing a block, like being a block away, to quote the KnitGirlls.
Uh-huh.
So, I've been doing some embroidery and cross stitch this week. These are gifts. Both of these items are gifts, but they won't get to their recipients until after Christmas because I am a poor planner when it comes to that sort of thing.
You mail stuff out today, it'll get there.
No, it's not gonna happen.
Okay.
Because like I said, I've still got to like frame / mount these. So the first is for my friend Lynn, who never watches the podcast, so I don't have to worry about her seeing this.
But Jessica's gonna totally tease her.
Don't
and
tell her, Jess. So, I have boards on Pinterest. Pinterest is the website. I have boards on Pinterest for pretty much all sorts of different things. And occasionally, I actually do the things that I pin. Not
No
often.
way.
But, you know, one out of every 150, maybe, I'll actually do. So this one was a pin. I've linked it in the show notes. This one
I
is...
just realized my Starbucks cup is not red. Huh.
We're talking about me, though.
I know. It's not the holiday cup. Anyway.
So, I decided to do this cat yarn thing for my friend Lynn.
It's so cute.
So she has 3 torties. One is a new kitten. So I didn't have any, like, torty colored thread, but I sort of combined this coppery and brown thread to give it kind of a torty effect. I don't know if it's gonna... There we go.
I think you need to put a little bit of pink on the nose. Like it's Lily.
Oh, that's true. I could weave a little bit of pink in there. And then I asked Laura, what color should I make the yarn ball? And of course,
Rainbow!
one color isn't good enough. So, did a rainbow. I used satin stitch for the rainbow, and then just stem stitch for the face of the kitten. And
Super cute.
it's just on some cotton fabric. So I need to frame it. I'll mount it to a frame, and then, well, I gotta wash it, like soak it first.
Are you gonna put in?
My brain's in all these different places.
Are you gonna put in like a color catcher just in case?
Oh yeah, everything I wash with color catchers. They're right by my
Really?
sock soap. Because I block things usually in the basement.
Yeah.
And the
You've got
second,
it in your basement.
yes, the second is for Laura.
Yes.
I already showed this to her, but I will tell you, I always agonize over gifts for Laura because sometimes I go like the total cheater way and buy something like a Kindle, which I know she'll use a lot,
Which
right?
is the best present ever.
But it's also very impersonal. And then, so this year, starting like a week ago, because again, planner, not me, I had all these great ideas. I was going to embroider all the lyrics for the song from Wicked for Good. And I was going to do this like really cool word art thing.
Cool.
Except that takes time and planning. And I had neither of those things.
You You'll have to give me my present on Christmas.
So that might be something I do in the future because I do have some great ideas for how I would do all of these things, add pictures into the words and all that, but I just haven't had time to do it. So instead, I took the easy way and chose a pattern that was already created.
But it's awesome.
These are quotes from The Princess Bride in all these different colors. All the little boos. I love the boos.
Love the little boos. And they're all the way around.
Yeah. So this is meant to be mounted in a circular embroidery hoop.
Yes, it's going to go right behind me. It's on my diploma, I think.
Yeah. So it's got anybody want a peanut or never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. You killed my father, prepare to die. All these great quotes.
Just a movie.
I chose some slightly different colors than what's in the pattern. I linked the pattern in the show notes. So if you want to make something like this, you can. This was pretty quick. This went quicker than I thought it would. So I did this.
It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, but I worked on it almost exclusively. So it was fun. I like that it used different techniques for the letters, and it even had some French knots in there and all the different colors. I liked it. So that also is going to get a wash and then get mounted into the embroidery hoop with some backing fabric. So that's it. I did a little spinning. I'll show that after you talk about your finished objects.
Okay. I have a couple of finished objects, and why we're recording in the morning is because I need to wrap them and mail them. Because US will still do priority shipping today and get there Christmas Eve. So your stuff got shipped out on Saturday.
Sweet.
And Kobe's hats, because Kobe got a hat. So, finished objects. I had already shown y'all Alice's Waiting for Winter
mitts.
Mitts, the little ones. This is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson. And I also knit Julia a pair.
Aww.
This is the difference between the two sizes. And there's a little bit more bluish green in Julia's. It's funny because there's also that right that blended in that one too. And I have enough left over to probably knit a third if they lose one. So that might happen later after Christmas. So these are little Waiting for I didn't even put it in the show notes. I need to add those. I created pattern pages, but I didn't, or project pages on Rav, but I didn't put in there. Little Waiting for Winter Mittens by Susan B. Anderson. It's been linked in the show notes before when I did Alice's. It's also on my Ravelry page. I used Noro Huron for the color gradients, and then Plymouth Galloway in the gray for the regular. I bought both these yarns at House of Yarn at Thanksgiving time when I drove through then, and they were knit on size 6 needles. So, and here they are on top of one another, so you can kind of see the size difference. So this is the smallest child size. They have baby sizes too, so like thumbless mitts, and then there's the 4 and 5-year-old size. So that is about it. I did not do the striping on Julia's cuff so that my sister-in-law could tell them apart very easily.
That's pretty
they're
smart.
very similar in colors. Yep. And these got knit on at band concerts this week. And soccer games. So, anyway, soccer is a winter sport in Mississippi, and it's played outdoors, and it's craziness. All right, then I finished a hat. This is a Christmas present for someone. I love putting on hats on the podcast.
This is a Helen Stewart pattern, right?
This is by Helen Stewart. It was part of her knit event this year. It is the Ice River hats, and I actually ordered the yarn that it was knit out of because hers was so pretty. This is Fiber Company's Tundra. Hers was in a white, but I don't feel comfortable giving white gifts for people because I'm terrible with white. Like, I'm so terrible with white that I assume other people are terrible with white too. I don't know how a hat would get dirty, but in my life a hat would get dirty. So this is the Fiber Company Tundra. It was knit on size 10 needles. It is like an alpaca silk merino blend, I think. It's really, really soft. I ordered it from the Loopy U. I'm going to be getting more because I just love it. Really, really soft. I don't think I have probably enough to pom-pom it, but it'd be like a dinky pom-pom. So I'm gonna leave it no pom-pom. Knit it up super fast, and oh, it's so soft. I want to keep it for me, but it's going elsewhere. Now I have crazy here. And then the last gift that I worked on this week, and then I'll put my headphones back on so I can.
She can't hear anything that I'm saying right now.
Do what?
Nothing.
I heard that. So this is. Did you like how it bounced?
Wow, that was very flattering.
Yeah, so you kind of have to work with it down, or you can flip the brim up. So this is the goats of Eversnade. I'm totally butchering that. I'm sorry, people who live in that area. It is based. Do you see the little goats? You have to look at the like white, gray. Okay, and then at the top, there's kissing goats. See how they're kissing? And then there's hearts. So I'm gonna put on my headphones again so I can talk about it. So that is Kate Davies. That is a Kate Davies pattern, and it uses her new yarn, which I'm also going to butcher, but I have a book, so I can butcher it with a visual. And she's got, or I'll just show you. She's got a pronunciation key on her website, but this is her new yarn. It's 100% wool. It's grown by Scottish sheep. This is a mountain in Scotland, I believe. That's how it gets its name. So she selected Scottish fleeces, and then it's a worsted spun, but it's got a lot of loft. It almost feels like a woolen. It reminds me a little bit of Brooklyn Tweed Loft. The colors do not, though. The colors, it looks like were dyed in the skein versus dyed in the wool. So they're very consistent. And this took 3 skeins. It's a little bit big, obviously. But I went down a needle size. So the ribbing is supposed to...
You didn't do a gauge swatch, right? Because
no, I did not. I did not do a gauge swatch because it was a hat, a stranded hat, and I didn't feel like gauge swatching.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify, so we're not saying...
I did this whole thing in 24 hours.
You did. You were like whizzing through that.
Because I wanted to knit on it while I watched Sound of Music, so I could sing the Lonely Goat Herd song as I knit on it, and I did. I finished it by the end of Sound of Music. Which
I'm going to shock you.
On ABC.
I've never watched that. Nor have I watched White Christmas. Nor have I watched Miracle on 34th Street. Or the really depressing one, It's a Wonderful Life. Never watched that either.
I like White Christmas. I thought we had gone to see that play.
We did. No, I've seen the play White Christmas. Okay. I've never seen the movie.
Same thing. Essentially. You know the storyline for White Christmas. It's so sad. Like, I think it's one of those, like, movies when you're younger, you're like, oh, it's so sweet that they're doing stuff for the general. And then, like, as you get older and you kind of reach those eras in your life where you're like... So this is my goat hat that is getting sent to someone else, and she can roll up the brim, or she could even full it down probably a little bit. So it calls for 4s, and I knit it on 3s, and it's still a little bit too large. It's interesting because she tells you not to... So on super long strands, typically I twist them. And she tells you not to, because it'll show through. So, it's my stranded. But there are some... Let me find some places. There are some places with, like, very long strands.
Your strands are very even, though. I mean, they're very...
They weren't. The magic of Fair Isle is blocking.
That's true.
Like, it was not super even. I feel like the decreases especially, I'm not... Now I'm picking it apart, but I'm not, like, the happiest with because it's a double decrease in pattern. And that's not a design thing. I'm just not happy with how I made them look because when I do Fair Isle, I knit with 2 hands. So the green I wanted, I did in this hand, and the gray I did in my right hand, which is how I typically knit. It's my dominant hand. And the green, when I was doing the center double decreases, I felt like I wasn't getting it. They're not as neat as I would like them to be. Because I wasn't getting them as tight as I and concise as I would like to be. But with stranding, you can't pull as tight as you would like.
Yeah, because you'll warp the fabric.
Yes, you'll add some nice little waves to your fabric. So I think she'll like it. And it's got goats. It's a lonely goat herd. And that is it for me for finished objects. You have some spinning. I have no spinning.
This is a first. Yes, so after seeing everybody's pretty core spun around the Christmas lights,
yeah,
I decided I wanted to do some core spinning.
Uh-huh.
Core spinning does not really come as naturally to me as a lot of other techniques.
It's something you have to practice. It's not gonna
I don't know. I feel like my fingers haven't found that rhythm that you eventually get into with, like, even long draw to me is easier than core spinning. I just can't.
I wonder if it's when you are core spinning, are you letting it go clockwise? Are you adding S twist or Z twist?
Clockwise.
Okay, that's how I do mine.
I had to think about it.
I want to try it counterclockwise. That might work better for you.
Maybe. I feel like I couldn't get the right tension on the core because I was using such a very thin yarn. I feel like I couldn't get the right tension on the core to allow to not. I had better luck when I backed away a lot from the orifice and fed out a lot at a time versus inchworming it. I had better luck then, but
I had better luck when I work away from the orifice as well, I feel like.
Yeah, so I think I need more practice, but I mean, well, I know I need more practice because I've only done it a few times.
What yarn were you using as your core, and what yarn?
The core I used Zephyr's wool silk blend.
Very fine.
Yeah, it is a fine yarn.
If you have a mohair, try it over a mohair because the mohair fuzz will grab it too, and that's a good way of practicing.
The what is it called? The part that I spun around.
The core.
The core. No, that's the middle.
The fiber. The fiber that you spun.
Yes. Okay. So that is from Knit Spin Farm, which is Joanna, who is lovely.
She is lovely.
It was
new baby goats too. I should knit her a goat hat too.
I only know about the new baby goats because I had texted Amy Beth about something, and she sent me a link to the Instagram where she and Tova went to see the baby goats. Because I'm so behind on podcasts and social media, and I'm like, I've been on Instagram twice in like 2 months. I'm so behind. I just haven't felt like it lately. So this was one of Joanna's Halloween bats that I bought while we were recording because I was a greedy person. It's called Mummy Masquerade, and it's got a little bit of everything. So it's got Angelina, BFL, Cordell, Falkland, Merino, Silk, and Silk Noil. I liked everything in the bat except the Silk Noil, and the reason I didn't like the Silk Noil was because it's hard to control. It's sort of like, it kind of comes apart, and it's designed to do that. I don't say that negatively. It's just, it doesn't have like a staple length because it's all sort of leftover bits and bobs of the silk.
It's been silk that's been cut into small segments.
It's like, little noils, so it was hard to control, so that part I didn't like. And while this was on the bobbin, I kind of felt like I ruined it. Honestly. I felt like I took a really pretty bat and turned it into like dirty dishwater. That's
I like it because I think the pops of color really come through.
In the skein, I like it much more. So, gosh, that light's washing it out. But there's pops of pink and black and orange and sparkle, and there's some purple.
It looks cool. I think it'd be really awesome to weave with.
Yeah, I might end up weaving with it. It's very soft.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it looks beautiful right now. It has not been set. So I haven't, like, soaked it yet. I did put 4 ties on it because it's correspond, and I know. So
It's like with a single you
yeah.
have. You could actually fold it a little bit if you wanted to.
I might just soak it first and see how much it sort of evens out,
Yeah.
balances. If it doesn't, then I may fold it. I like the softest right now, so I worry about folding it. So it's got a full twist in it, which is better than I thought, honestly. And it's because it's a single, essentially. And it's got, curly bits in there. So I'm going to soak it after we record and then hang it to dry. I will not put weight on it. I don't usually put weight on the yarn that I spin. But I like it. I mean, I think when I was spinning it on the bobbin, every time I changed the
So
hook,
which wheel did you spin it on?
I spun it on the mini, the Hanson mini spinner.
Okay.
But I felt like every time I stopped to move the slider, I had it on a gray part, and so that's why it looked so ugly to me.
Well, I also feel like you get into a better rhythm on a wheel.
Definitely with something that you have to sort of change as you go. A long draw is a good example of that. You sort of have to modify it along with the amount of fiber you've got and how far back your arm is and all that. You sort of have to change it constantly, and that you can't really do that on a mini. Maybe you can. I really fail hard at that on a mini. But on like traditional wheel like a Matchless or Ladybug or anything like, it's much easier.
I just get into, when I core spin, I get into a rhythm where as I treadle, I know how much to put in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I lose that rhythm on the mini.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try core spinning on
When you're
a
matchless.
traditional wheel, like the Matchless. I like it. I think Joanna does a great job with her bats. She puts just enough sparkle in to not overwhelm it. I think if I buy in the future, I'll try not to buy any with the silk noil. So, like, here's an example of the silk noil. Only because I can't control what it does, and I don't like that. It kind of comes apart when you put any tension on it.
The trick for me with working with silk noil is to make sure that it's not just silk
That
noil.
it's like sandwiched in other fiber.
It's sandwiched in it, and that's the same with because here's some core spinning that I pulled. Like this one's got big blobs, but you want to make sure that you get some wool in with the sparkle, so it's not just big blobs. Like this is a better example that there's like wool in there with that big blob of sparkle. You want to try to, when you draft, get both. This one had locks in it too, and so some of the locks I just let tail spin in.
Yeah.
But you can see more locks. See, what is it? Carbon bamboo and I don't get along because it feels like a chalkboard. So everyone's got their thing that they don't prefer. Although in small amounts, it's okay. Right. We have 2 things to review.
Yes, so if you don't like our reviews, and some people just don't like reviews in general, that's totally fine. That section for you to skip ahead is going to be a little bit longer than normal.
Because we have 2 things to review.
Yes.
So the first thing that we are reviewing is the lovely Susan B. Anderson sent us her new book, which is Susan B. Anderson's Kid Knitting Workshop. It is put out by Artisan Books. This was sent to us for review. It retails for $17.95 in the U.S. There is a Kindle edition available for $9.99. I really like the hard edition, though, if you have someone who likes books, because it does have the spiral bound spine, which lays very flat and open. Mm-hmm. It has lots of great, colorful, full-size pictures. It's an interesting shape. It's like more of a square shape, so it fits on a smaller bookcase. Tall book.
I think
it's a premium.
It's easy to navigate. The different sections have their own color in the spine of the book.
Actual. Yeah. So they have their own color in the beginning, and then it's so like number 1 is get ready an overview of tools and materials, so you can just flip to that red,
right,
and you are right there.
So she starts. I read this book mostly cover to cover. I did skip some information within the patterns themselves, But I did read all the sections that I could. And I like that she starts out with how to teach.
Yeah, like 7 tips for teaching kids
Right.
to knit.
And adults as well.
Yeah.
And when she talks about something that she talks about more in the book, she references it. She says, do this if you want to teach them how to knit in the round, see page whatever, so that you can get more information. You don't have to hunt for it. I like that. And then she talks about, like Laura said, get ready. She explains how to read a yarn label, which I think for a kid is really useful.
And then how to read a pattern comes a little bit later, which is also super useful, whether you're an adult or a child.
She explains a lot of things that you don't really think. Like, as a knitter, you sort of inherently understand that if you get one of these shapes of yarn, like the little donut or the more commercially sort of oblong, then you can start knitting with it right away. Whereas, a child or somebody who's new to knitting wouldn't necessarily know that. So she goes even into explaining, if you get a skein of yarn, how do you take it apart and actually turn it into what you can use?
Which I know some adults who struggle with this.
Yeah,
so I feel like it's useful for any beginner knitter, not just kids. And there's some super cute projects in here.
She talks about gauge. She talks about all the different tools you'll use. She talks about how to read the pattern. You talked about that already, sorry.
So she gets through the general basics, and then I like that she's got it divided into lessons. So you can do just one lesson and then walk away, which I really, really like. So knitting lesson 1 is casting on, even though she says at the beginning, the first couple times you might want to cast on for your kids.
Right.
That
to get them interested in just the knit stitch.
Yes.
Before the sort of kind of bumpy, less beautiful casting on.
She also does these little tips throughout, which are super handy. So like this one says, if you're casting on a large number of stitches, a good way to keep track of how many you have on your needles is to place a stitch marker every 20 stitches. And then she goes, turn to page 40 on how to add a stitch marker. Right. So very clear, easy to see illustrations, but I really like that it's broken up into like 15 to 20 minute lessons, which is about 15 minutes is about as much as you can keep a kid's attention. So do that one lesson.
Right.
Say, okay,
take a break, go get lunch, right.
Let's go get a drink, let's come back, let's walk around, let's, and then come back to it. I love that.
And she teaches the 2 main different styles of knitting as well. She doesn't say this is how you knit. She says, this is the way that I knit. Continental style, you hold your yarn this way. And she also talks about throwing, which is more English style. There's other ways, but these are the 2 most common. And even when she's got a lot of information that she's trying to get through to you, she breaks it down in such a way that it's easy on the eye, and so you can read one little section, pop around, and come back. And I feel like some people, even when they've got the most informative, wonderfully pertinent information to share with you, it can be hard if it's just one big block of text.
It's formatted. The formatting of the text is really well broken up and very easy to read.
Yes.
She does suggest that you learn to knit in the round first, and so the projects reflect that. So the very first project is a little hat.
Yep.
And that is knit in the round. Now, I know at my school we had to use chopsticks that they had sharpened. So knitting in the round, and that's how they teach it. That's how Eloise and them teach at different hospitals in the area, because it's the most inexpensive knitting needles, whereas circular needles, there's more of an investment on the front end there. So this might not work for the knitting in the round, might not work for everyone, but there are some flat projects later on.
Yeah, for big groups, I would say for sure, it's harder to invest that much money right off the bat. However, if you're teaching a one-on-one person, loaning a needle is much less of a big deal than it is to buy
like my
10
art
sets.
teacher has 200 kids, so it's hard for her to
It's completely
invest.
impractical to buy 200 12-inch size whatever needles.
She has these very cute wrap bracelets, which would be a great project to get started on. Very easy, just a few rows. Great for short attention spans, just 20 yards of a bulky weight. So not a huge investment. Then there's a cowl.
Yes. And there's
And
different
very cute
sizes.
models.
This is the
Yeah.
first project where she shows different sizes and how to read different sizes in a pattern. She also does a lot of like one-off lessons. So like how to make a pom-pom. There's a 2-page tutorial on how to make a pom-pom that doesn't require any special tools or gadgets.
How to add stripes, and then she goes into...
She does a lot of really simplistic illustrations on how to do things, like how to weave in ends, how to bind off in a pattern. Later on, when there's embroidery on items, she does fantastic illustrations. Well, maybe not her specifically, but whoever her illustrator is does fantastic illustrations on how to embroider.
Then the second section adds the purl stitch in, which has great illustrations as well. It's got a pattern for a headband with ribbing, a hat with rib, a cuffed basket, which I think is super cute.
Yeah. She shows when you're knitting how to tell your knit versus your purl stitch, which I think this is a really useful skill. And if I had one critique on the book, it would be I wish that she had slightly more information on reading your knitting. And that would really fit in the back where she talks about fixing your mistakes, because I think that's one sort of undersung skill for people to be able to read your knitting. It's much easier to fix your problems, to know where you are in a pattern, if you can read your knitting better. But
and then 4 is advanced skills, which goes into knitting back and forth, increasing small knot, like magic looping for, well, not really magic looping, casting on small number of stitches using circular needles.
Yeah.
So stretched out stitches. And then there's this little snowman.
Yes.
So cute.
And this is
She goes with a template with the embroidery for the felts.
And this is part of where I was talking about. She doesn't just say embroider a smile onto the snowman. She takes you step by step for how to embroider that smile on the snowman. And she does that for every single item in here that has embroidery.
How to attach eyes.
Yes.
Safety eyes, which I've never seen actually written out before.
And she does address any time that it's considered a choking hazard, she addresses that in the book. Which, you know, a teenager may not realize. So it's helpful to have.
And she goes into some mason jar cozies.
So this has several different patterns. There's ribbing, seed stitch, basket weave, and then she even addresses cabling, which I think is sort of adventurous for a learning to knit book, but she does it in a very, it's a small project, it's one type of cable, so I think it's a very achievable sort of final exam, if you will, for the book.
Yep, she has this very cute little fox pillow. As well, with the yarn over techniques. Some hand puppets, which actually kind of leads into mittens because they're very similar, even though I don't think she's got mittens in here. You get the general shape. Owl and kitten toys.
I love those. Those are my favorite things in the book.
Super cute.
Yeah, I want a kitten. They're so cute. And again, I like how, I mentioned earlier, like with pom-poms, she shows you how to do it with like a piece of cardboard, so you don't need a special tool. Again, this is addressed here with how to make the owl's eyes. She doesn't say, make a circle that's an inch in diameter. She says, go get a quarter, lay it on a piece of felt, trace it, cut it out. Like, she makes it very doable and uncomplicated.
And then the back goes into fixing mistakes, tinking back, ripping back.
Can I just say, I totally learned something in this.
Did you?
Because,
what did you learn?
So I know that the term frogging your knitting is because if you rip it, it sounds like ribbit, sounds like a frog. I get that, right? I never realized that tink is knit spelled backwards. Never realized that. Never in my life. So I totally learned something from this book on children's knitting. Thank you, Susan B. Anderson.
I really like the sewing up a hole section. Like, that is a very clever way of doing that, and that kind of goes into darning a little bit. And then she does go into beyond circular knittings with magic loop and double pointed needles. See, I knew I saw magic loop in here somewhere.
She even addresses blocking.
Yes, blocking. That's what I was about to say. So really, really comprehensive book. There's templates in the back for like the kitten's nose and kitten's ears and the snowman's carrots. It's just very, very cute, very worthwhile book, especially if you have a new knitter in your life or kids that you want to teach to knit.
Yes, and I would say it's even written in such a way, it's not dumbed down. So
No.
if you give this to a teenager, they're not going to feel like it's a baby book.
My kids really enjoyed look. I took it to school with me,
Mhm.
and my kids had just finished their knitting section, but they really enjoyed looking.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is great. She actually says that in general terms, the best time to teach someone to knit is around age 10 because they've developed the fine motor skills, I guess that's the earliest ideal time to teach them. So every kid is different, so some may be fantastic at 7 or what have you, but I really enjoyed this. I think that it's a great book for teaching really any kid to knit, or any adult as well, as long as they don't have an aversion to the title being kids knitting. I really think it helps you develop the basic skills that you need. It addresses everything from casting on to weaving in ends to binding off to fixing your mistakes, and it does it in a very uncomplicated, I don't want to say simplistic, but easy to understand way.
Yeah.
So I'm all
and
about
I would
this book.
expect nothing less from Susan.
Yes.
So it is a wonderful book. This is The Kids Knitting Workshop by Susan B. Anderson. It's got 17 projects, tons of tutorials, including step-by-step text and illustrations that kids can really see and go through on their own, as well as reading together. So it's one of those books that you can read together as a family, kind of like go in and really look at things together, but also you could hand it to a kid that wants to learn to knit and they could do it on their own for the most part.
Yeah, in very bite-sized segments.
Yes, I love the size of the lessons, especially. That's like the teacher and me coming out. The other thing that we have to review, is we got our new issues of Ply magazine. Leslie and I both subscribe to Ply. It is one of the best spinning magazines out there, and we always enjoy it. It does retail for $11 an issue. Guess who took this picture on the back? Do you know?
No.
Martha of Tuft Woolens.
Oh, seriously?
Yes, that's
one
of
wonderful.
her pictures. So Ply, this is the 11th issue.
It's put out by J.C. Boggs Faulkner.
Yes.
Who is insubordinate on Ravelry. She's been teaching for years. She's got videos out with Interweave. I think she's got a Craftsy class.
Craftsy class, yep. It's a good one.
So she really knows her spinning, and she wanted to put out a magazine that was less focused on the advertising and more focused on the actual content. So that's the reason for the higher price of the magazine. And it is.
She also paid, like, the rights of the pattern writers revert to them after,
as well as the articles. And she fervently sort of I don't want to say requests, that's not necessarily the right word, but she encourages the independent submission, not necessarily just by established pattern or article writers. She really encourages the person who's never designed a pattern before to submit something.
Of every issue, it tells you how to contribute. It's not a secret, and you can sign up for her emailing list, and she sends you the mood board for that coming issue. They're typically around a year out. And what she's looking for, and you can submit whatever you like. And one thing that I wish people would submit, because there is some stock sheep photography in here, from, like, I don't want to say Shutterstock. Let me find it, because it irritated me that she didn't, Shutterstock. I wish that there were more sheep like, we've all seen this picture.
Yeah.
I wish that there were some more submissions of really interesting, because I know there's sheep farmers out there that could be submitting just pictures of sheep they could be using in articles rather than having to go to Shutterstock. So I'd love to see a little bit more of that, like Martha has on the back. So this issue, this is the 11th issue. I have every single one. I love them all. And I refer back to them a lot. This is a singles issue. For those of you who don't know, singles, I actually have some singles down here, the Romney singles that I spun. singles are when, and these have been fold, it's just one strand
Mm-hmm.
of fiber.
When you've
And this was
spun a
Rodney.
fiber into a strand of yarn, but you haven't
Uh-huh.
combined that strand with anything else.
No, and when you spin singles a lot, you're spinning them, you're going in knowing that you want them to be singles.
Mm-hmm.
Because you spin a single differently than you spin something that you want to ply.
Right. I really like I think that the way that she's laid this out is new for this issue. Either that or I just didn't pay attention before. So she talks about, this is the table of contents, and it's all color coded by the different articles and everything. And the key is right here on the side. So it's similar to how sewing pattern books are laid out.
Yeah.
Which
So
I
the
think
purple is finish,
nice.
pink,
Mm-hmm.
light pink is weave, gray is knit,
Mm-hmm.
green is experiment, dark pink is spin, and like the lightest pinkish purple is consider.
Yep.
Like stuff to think about. So the very first article is a consider article by JC.
Yeah, and this is
I love the
JC.
wheel. Yep, that's JC. And she talks about, you know, you're spinning, you can spin whatever you want. You can spin it however way you want, but sometimes you're going to be happier with different results.
If you're looking for X, you might be more successful if you do Y.
Yes. So she goes into what she thinks makes a successful single. And typically it's a longer fiber to begin with. It's setting up your wheel with less twist and less tension. It's deciding on a worsted draft rather than a woolen draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's experimenting.
Oh yeah, that's
trying
that's
different
the key,
things
practice.
and not following. JC is very big on not following rules. I mean, but experimenting, anticipating failure, but learning from
Right.
failure.
Not expecting specific results out of the way that she does things. She's really good at finding creative ways to get a new result.
Yeah. And going along with the topic of fiber, Beth Smith
Mm-hmm.
has an article in here about why fiber matters. And it's really interesting. She goes through 3 different breeds of fiber, Merino, Romney, and Wensleydale. It spins them as singles and then knits them up and
as
shows
swatches.
the bias. And she actually abrates, she folds
Mm-hmm.
the swatch a little bit to see what that does
So,
as well. So the bottom corner.
Quick explanation on fulling. When you spin a fiber, if you spin a single and you don't full it, you could essentially untwist it and pull it back apart because all a single is twisted fiber. That's all it is. However, if you full it, and it has to be a natural wool in order for, I don't know if other fibers will felt or not. Generally speaking, it needs to be a natural wool, not superwash, because if it's a superwash wool, all the scales have been stripped. If you take a natural wool and you've either got it in a skein or knit it into a swatch and you full it, usually by shocking it with temperature, it essentially it takes all those individual single fibers and it makes them grab onto their neighbors. So it becomes a fabric versus a fiber. I don't know if that's necessarily 1,000% accurate, but it creates it. It takes away the individuality of the individual fibers and it creates it as a continuous whole. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a lecture there.
No, you're fine. One of the articles that I really enjoyed because we just got done with Spinzilla is Jillian Marino, who is the spinning editor for Knitty Magazine, contributed an article on singles versus two-ply yarn, which is really interesting. I'm not going to give away the secret sauce of what's faster. Y'all need to read the article. But she also says winning isn't everything. Going fast isn't everything. Sometimes you need to enjoy the yarn that you've made. So I thought that was a great article.
I like Carson Demers.
He's in every single issue.
Yes, and he usually talks about the ergonomics of spinning and how to make it not painful. Like sitting in the same position all the time is not good for you. But I especially appreciated this month. It made me laugh, actually. So he talks about drop spindling, and
Yes.
how you should hold your arm for, not having arm pain. But I love that the illustration is a chick in her pajamas. Like, that totally made my day, because that is
I
what I
like
look like when I spin.
Yep. There's also a really interesting article on single sock yarn and which wears faster, the singles versus a two ply.
Yes, and
So she
I
wore the
really
same socks
liked
for
this.
30 days.
Yes.
But
Um,
it's Gotland, which is a very long staple
yes,
fiber.
it's a longer, I think it's somewhere between 4 and 6 inches. But yeah, she wore the little footies every day for 30 days, with the exception of when she was sitting down, when she was not actively walking. Then
Yeah.
she didn't wear them, because she has tactile issues. But she even talked about how she would stand outside with her neighbor and sort of scuff her foot on the sidewalk, and
Yeah.
attempt. She wanted to wear a hole in these socks, and she wanted to see whether it was in the single versus the plied
Yeah.
yarn. It was really, really interesting. um, I enjoy the sort of less theoretical, more real life
Yeah.
experience type articles.
This issue has a really cool thing on tatting.
Mm-hmm.
It also has weaving with singles. So it's not just a knitting spinning magazine. There are in every issue a lot more crafts
Yeah.
explored. Our good friend Anne Krieg has a little thing in here about spinning for a shawl that Susanna IC
Yep.
created
Designed.
for the
Mm-hmm.
issue. Yep. So there is that gorgeous shawl pattern in here, and Anne does a great job of explaining how she spun for that shawl. There are schematics for how it's supposed to look. I do like that shawl. I think that's something that I might look at a little bit later knitting. It calls for 630 yards.
I like that as well, because it's simple with the garter stitch, and a little bit of lace at the bottom. Is that garter or stockinette? Oh, it's mostly garter. But I have to say, for the singles, I kind of like what Carol Feller did.
Yeah,
I don't know that I would wear this particular garment, but I really appreciate the thought that she put into how it's designed.
with
So
the bias. Yeah.
yeah, it's an ondulant scarf, and it's got a zigzag of almost a cable going through the scarf, and on either side it's got kind of short road stockinette, but it forces the bias to kind of fight against itself, so that
Yep.
it flattens itself out in the end. And that's a very clever thing to do with singles, because generally speaking, singles want to bias if left alone. So it's nice to sort of play it against itself. I think that's a really great design.
Yep. There's a bunch of both tapestry weaving and rigid heddle weaving in here,
Hmm.
and also pegloom weaving. So if any of those are something that you are interested in, they go with singles in there. And then the how do you say that, sorori weaving as well.
Sorry, I think Saori. I'm a member of that group on Ravelry, but
So there's
I can't
lots
say
of
it.
weaving in this issue, especially the hot button issue, which they do every issue,
Hmm.
is something that people really
They have a
feel
strong
strongly
opinions one
about.
way or the other.
And
Yeah.
this one is tension setting yarn.
Yep.
And Amy King's made me laugh. For the love of all things yarn, please stop drying your knitting yarn with waving.
Yes, that's true.
So they do like that to, it's not always wrong, and here's what I,
And they back up their opinion with
with,
an
yeah,
explanation. Um, Generally speaking, I agree with her. Some So I like that what Arlene Thayer, she's also known as a spin artiste. I'm not familiar with that person, but I like her sort of excerpt the best. It's tension setting is not evil, but it's not something you should do without thinking. So I sort of interpret that as it's not something you should do without knowing what you're going to do with the yarn and why it's important that it be tension set
yes,
for what you're doing. Um,
I agree
she
with
said
that.
it in a much more concise way, but I also like in a little bit back in the book, there's a good girl gone bad. It's a simple scarf, but she talks about how in knitting the scarf. So let me show you the finished scarf. It's It's a very simple pattern done in a lovely yarn. This is a more close-up of the texture. It's sort of a mesh kind of netted look. And so she talks about how important blocking or setting can be. So on the left is the yarn in pattern and set. And then on the right, once it's gotten wet, it all scrunches itself back up again.
Yep.
So it talks about the importance of setting your yarn.
And that's about it. I always love their ads are very. I always like their ads.
They're beautiful and they fit in the magazine. Yeah, the 2-page spread there is really the only clump
There's
of
some
ads.
on the sidebars.
Yeah, there are some tasteful ads within the articles or between, but and they're all clearly marked as advertisements.
Yep. So this is Ply Magazine, and we actually have a year subscription that JC and Jess have set up for us.
Yep.
So our giveaway for this week is going to be a year subscription to Ply Magazine. We will have a thread on the Ravelry board, and you just need to tell us what you hope to learn from Ply.
Yes, I would ask that if you're not already a subscriber to Ply, take a look at what they've already addressed, because they've already addressed a lot of really, I don't want to say important necessarily, but really common things. Like they've addressed worsted yarns and woolen yarns, and there's still plenty to learn. They didn't do an encyclopedic, completely comprehensive thing, but take a look at what they've already sort of covered before you give us your answer of what you would like them to cover in the future.
There you go. So that thread will be up in our Ravelry group. They do put out 4 issues a year, so that's what a subscription would entail.
And it's like I want to say a $36. If you're a subscriber, it's $36. If you buy each one individually, it's $44.
Around there. So that is Ply Magazine. We do have a question from Petroth. I'm currently knitting on a yarn that I love how it feels and looks, but I hate knitting it. It's silk and cashmere, Crimea River, right? But I don't do lace, and it's super slippery. I've cast on at least 4 different projects and then frogged them. The current project is turning out fine. It's a long tail, tall cowl, but there is another skein. I need to use it because it's way out of my price point, but man, I'm just not sure what to do with the yarn. So I'm curious as to what weight yarn it is. I'm guessing it's probably fingering.
Did you look in her patterns?
I did not. So yeah, I'll do that right now.
So,
but my first suggestion would be maybe change the needles that you're using. If it's super slick on metal needles, maybe try some wooden needles that would work be a little bit less slick for you. I'm looking right now to see if she's got the yarn in her
keep in mind that silk and cashmere, while absolutely beautiful and luscious, are not fantastic at holding their shape. So as a cowl, it's going to be a much more sort of drapey cowl. It's not going to stand up unless it's got a really high cashmere content and very little silk. It will feel fantastic, but it's not going to hold its shape. It's going to be a very drapey yarn regardless of what project you use it for, unless you knit it at like a bulletproof gauge. And then you're not going to enjoy knitting with it, because then your hands will be sore from knitting it so tightly. I would suggest maybe try a different craft. Maybe it's not meant to be knit. Maybe weave it into a scarf. I mean, that would make it drapey and lovely. Yes, or you could crochet it, or...
She's only able to chain crochet. I just saw that.
Oh, okay. Well, that limits your options, but... you could try a different craft. You could, like Laura mentioned, you could try different needles. You could always trade it. If you love it, but it's just not working for you, you could always trade it for something else. Usually, by that I mean trade on Ravelry versus take it back to the store or what have you. But
she likes Martina Bem patterns. It might be great for a hitchhiker.
Yeah, it would be a fantastic hitchhiker. And I would... with that silk content, assuming it's not a worsted weight, if it's like fingering or sport or something, I would almost recommend going up several needle sizes so it's a really loose drapey.
Creepy piece.
Because one of our friends, Kate, Irish Diva, who's lovely, sent me, I think it was a hitchhiker. It was one of them's patterns. I'm pretty sure it was a hitchhiker. And it was out of a DK or worsted weight yarn, but it was knitted a really loose gauge.
Uh-huh.
And so it's really drapey, and it's one of my favorite things to throw on in the winter because it's not real scrunched up and tight. It's a very loose, I can wrap it 100 different ways, and I can use it as a hood and a scarf, and
Yep.
I would maybe go up a gauge, go up
Oh, she's
several
got
needle
citron
sizes.
in her patterns
Oh,
that she
that would be
likes to do in
lovely.
her too. That would be nice. No, I feel like I'm being a stalker. Okay. So I would try the needles first. Maybe switch to a different needle
Hmm.
if it's not working for
A different
you.
needle composition, like wood
Yes.
or carbon.
Or carbons or something like
Yeah.
that. And that might help a little bit as well. So or you can always try destashing it. I'm sure that there would be someone who would love to
Oh,
take
yeah.
it off your hands. What are you listening to, my friend?
So what's really funny is even if I don't comment on the episode threads, I read every single post.
The Outlander update.
The Outlander updates, people apparently like them. So,
So, what's going on in Outlander?
what was the last thing?
I enjoy them because then I don't have to read
Yeah.
the Outlander. I've gotten all the. So she had gone back in time,
Right?
and he had gotten shots by his wife,
Right. Mm-hmm. Laurie.
and so she was patching him up, and they were in the U.S. Maybe I don't know.
Okay.
I totally lost track.
So at that point, yes, he had gotten shot, and he was dying. So Fergus, who they
this is
picked
like
up.
my sit back and knit time podcast.
So Fergus, who was the boy in the first Outlander novel that they picked up in a Parisian, no, it wasn't Parisian, I don't think. Or no, he was born in a Parisian brothel. He never knew his mother was. She was one of the prostitutes, but he never knew which one. And he grew up there. They found him when he was like 8, I think, and hired him to pickpocket letters between the Bonnie Prince and whatever other supporters so they could see what was going on. So he would pickpocket them, bring them to Jamie to read or whatever, and then take them back. So they picked him up when he was 8. In the future, he's still with Jamie, and he has a hook for a hand because he got his hand cut off when Jamie was hiding in a cave, and he was trying to take him some ale, but he ran into some soldiers, and he got his hand cut off. So now he has a hook. So Fergus goes to get Claire. Claire comes back, and because Claire is mad when she finds out Jamie's married. She is angry, right?
As you
Who wouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
So she runs off, intent to go back to Craignadoon and go back to the future. Fergus finds her, brings her back. She rescues Jamie from death's door using some penicillin that she brought back from the future.
Okay.
Back from the future. That's totally this week's title. The future. So I'm trying to remember what happened. Oh, Jamie wants to take young Ian, who is his nephew, and one of his sister's like 10 kids. He wants to take him with them to France to do something with his liquor importing,
Uh-huh.
because Ian thinks he
How old-
accidentally killed somebody.
How old's Ian?
He's 14.
Okay.
And he thinks he accidentally killed somebody when he was trying to burn some flyers that Jamie had printed because they were seditious, and he didn't want Jamie to get caught. So he burned the flyers, and it burned down the print shop, and there was a guy in there, and he thinks that he killed him. He didn't. You find that out later. And so he's all stressed, right? So
There's a lot of characters to keep up with.
So they're staying in the local bawdy house, and to make himself feel better, he ends up going to see one of the lovely ladies in the bawdy house. But anyway, as they're leaving to go to France or wherever, they're going to get some hidden treasure that Jamie found in novel 2, and he hid on Selkie Island, which Selkies are like seals, I guess.
They're in
Right, they're seen as like seals that come ashore and become human.
and then if you steal their skin, then
Mm-hmm.
they're stuck in human form
Right.
for forever.
So there's an island, they call it Selkie Island. Anyway, he'd hidden treasure there, and they've been back to get little bits and pieces of it here and there. And they needed some they needed some because Jamie wanted to divorce Laurie, but in order for her
The
to
woman who shot
agree,
him?
yes, in order for her to agree, he had to agree to provide dowries for the daughters, and there were 3 of them, so he needed like a whole bunch of gold.
Wait.
No, they were her kids.
Okay.
She had been married twice. Both had been lost as a result of the war, I think. So he came and married her in order to help support her. It wasn't a marriage out of love. So anyway, so he's got to find a bunch of gold.
I hope not, since she shot him.
But, well, she's the same one that sent Claire to get burned as a witch, because she was jealous of Claire, because Claire came in and scooped up her man when she was a teenager. But anyway, so he's going to get gold to pay for the dowry so he can get a divorce so that he can then be with Claire. And as Ian's the best swimmer, so you have to swim to get to this island. So Ian is going to swim to get to the island to get the treasure or whatever, but he gets caught by pirates.
Do they have hooks for hands too?
No, this is this isn't the hook for hand kid. This is
No,
Ian.
I got that.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
different.
No, as far as I know, they don't. So they take Ian, they don't kill him, they like knock him out, and they bring him aboard their ship. And of course, he's so far away, Jamie and Claire can do nothing, because this is
they know he
17,
got
whatever.
taken.
They see that he got taken. They see the ship. So then they go to, of course, Jamie's wrecked because this is his nephew, and now he's gone. So he goes and he finds out that the ship is most likely going to the West Indies.
So they're gonna hop aboard another ship.
They have to make preparations or whatever. And I talked about the Chinaman a little last week. So the Chinaman is there, and it's Claire and Fergus's girlfriend decides she's coming along. And that presents a whole nother bit of drama. But anyway, they finally get on the ship and start heading to the West Indies, which in that point in time is a 2 to 3 month trip, depending on weather, on a ship. And Jamie's always seasick. And he was, near death again. And he ended up having to have the Chinaman do, what's with the little needles? What's it called?
Acupuncture.
Yes, acupuncture. And he has like needles coming out behind his ears and under his elbows and weird stuff. So they get close to the West Indies, and then they run into a British ship who abducts Claire because they have an outbreak of
Gloria?
typhoid or something. It's not deadly usually, but like it causes them to not eat. And
Typhoid's deadly.
okay, it's not typhoid, it's something else. It like causes gastroenteritis distress, and so they abduct Claire. They said they just wanted to use her for like 6 hours, but then they abduct her because they can't be trusted.
How do
right?
they know? How do they know that she was a nurse?
Well, they came aboard and asked if anybody was a physician, and she volunteered because she's an idiot, right? Because she's used to living in the 1950s where people don't just abduct you on a ship and then you belong to them now, right?
Oh, Claire.
So she tries to make the best of it because they're heading to the same location that Jamie and them are heading. So she figures she'll get there and then she'll ditch the British and find Jamie. Well, things go wrong, and in order
Shocking.
for I know, right? Somewhere around Turks and Caicos, she decides that she's no longer going to stay on the ship, and so she jumps overboard and swims to this island and runs into
Ian?
no.
Oh.
She runs into this priest, not a priest, he's a philosopher, who then takes her to a priest who lives on the island. And the philosopher he speaks English. And it turns out later that he's actually had a conversation with Jamie, right? They're across the world, but that's happened. He had a conversation with Jamie about spiders.
About spiders?
Yes.
Why?
Because he happened to be at a bawdy house entertaining a young woman when a spider came down and she screamed and ran out, and Jamie happened to be there, and he came in to make sure that the girl wasn't being abused because Jamie, you know.
Was this body house in France?
It was, yeah, it's years before, whenever. So yeah, it
Someplace
must have
where
been in
Jamie
Scotland.
resided?
Oh yeah, because for his import business of the illegal alcohol, he uses bawdy houses as like storage centers.
That's super clever, actually.
Right. So so she goes to see the priest, who's kind of crazy, but he has a house, and so she gets fed and she gets to sleep. And then the next day, magically, Jamie's ship has shipwrecked on this island, but Jamie's not there because he had departed from them to try to find Claire sometime before. But then later in the day, Jamie comes and somehow
kid there?
He's the British like captain of this like group of soldiers. I don't know what they're called. I don't know how that happened, right? Because he's clearly Scottish. But so he's the captain of these soldiers, and they fix the ship, and he makes the soldiers help push it back out into the water, and then he knocks all the, well, not just him, but they capture the soldiers and put them down in the brig, and that's where I am now. So a lot happens every week, but at the same time, like she shoves a lot of information about the culture of the time and the geography of the areas and all.
Sounds like it's well researched.
Yeah, it definitely does. It makes it sound much more exciting than the book actually is. My recaps are much more colorful, I think.
How many hours did you listen to probably this week?
The book I think is like 45 hours. Let me look. I can tell you exactly how much I've listened to. Me daily. I've listened to about 8 to 10 hours this week.
Okay.
And I've got 9 hours and 40 minutes left. So maybe next week I'll be done. I don't know. Depends on what kind of crafting I'm doing. So there's your weekly crazy Outlander update.
Complete with spoilers.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I should have mentioned that. And then this week I've read some more male romance books that I'm not linking, and then I read it's kind of a cross between sci-fi and paranormal. It's kind of a romance, and it's the characters.
I think I've read that one.
Are sort of arachnid, or they have some. That was one of my main complaints about this book. Is I was really confused because at no point does the author explain the physiology of the people. As far as I can tell, they're human-ish, but they have some spider tendencies, like they can spin silk from their wrists or their fingers and all that stuff. And like the head of the families are women, but all the different clans are totally unpronounceable names. And it's like Tolkien when he introduces a bunch of characters where the names are similar and they're totally unpronounceable and you can't remember which is which. It's kind of like that.
So I'll be skipping that book.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I paid for it. I wouldn't do it again. So that was my colorful weekly reading. What about you?
I read Squashed by Joan Bauer. It is actually the first YA book that Joan Bauer ever wrote. Which you can tell a little bit. Her character development in her more current books are a little bit better. It is about a girl who is a little bit overweight, and she is obsessed with raising a pumpkin that will be the largest pumpkin and will win the giant prize. And there's pumpkin thieves, and there's a boy who grows corn, and it's a lot about growing pumpkins. And so it was interesting, but not something that I would necessarily recommend for my kids. I like her later books a lot better. Stand Tall is probably still my favorite by her. And then I started reading the sequel to Jacoby, Beastly Bones, which Jacoby is kind of like a Sherlock Holmes meets Spiderwick type character. He is an investigator, but he sees paranormal stuff that most people do not, and so he is called out to this town, and it's from the point of the view of his assistant. She's like the daughter of a paleontologist, and so they hear that there's dinosaur bones out in this town, and a couple people have gone missing, or have been killed, although it looks like natural causes. So they go on out, and it turns out that it's not a dinosaur; it's a dragon's bones.
Ooh.
I know, and that's how far I am in it. I left it at work though, so I have to go back up to work and grab it. Because I had cupcakes and fruit trays and all sorts of stuff that I was bringing home, so it didn't make it into my bag. But it's good so far. I like William Ritter's stuff quite a bit. And that's the second in that series, and that's been really about it. I need to get back reading, but I've been doing a lot of knitting and a lot of watching, like, Great British Bake Off and holiday movies and getting a lot of knitting done, obviously, and crafting and not a lot of reading. So that is about it for me. Favorite things. We have the crochet hooks to give away.
Yes, those are from Knitter's Pride, and they are
the Knitter's Pride Rosewood
the
set.
Symphony. I can't remember which one. Oh.
Symphony Rose. That's what it is.
There we go. Yes, so they're very lovely rosewood needles with the little Swarovski crystals in them.
Yep. There's 190 posts.
Sorry, I just jammed something into my thumb.
Oh no.
Okay, 100 and how many?
190. So you're going between 2 and 190.
All right. Between 2 and 190. Really should just download an app for this, but I always use random.org. All right, so I have not pushed the button. Push the button. It didn't do anything. There we go. 127, so that should be the 6th page.
$127 is the second one down. Super CLR. My fantasy needles are the interchangeable marbles, although she would also like to try some carbons too. So Super CLR, which is Christine from Ontario. If you will send Leslie a PM, she will get those in the mail to you.
Yep. I wanted to go and look at her stuff and see if she actually crochets. I'm sure she does.
She's been crocheting a few years.
Cool.
In her profile. So there you go.
I wanted to mention I really liked the crafting goals thread and what people had to say. I actually favorited a couple of posts because I wanted to talk about them. So probably my favorite post was by Delphinian, and she says, "What I like to do is make a nice, tidy list of reasonable goals and then patently ignore it and do something else." That made me laugh.
There was one that I really, really liked about, because I'm a very visual person, and I have actual, like, places where I could do this, just putting, like, one Post-it note per goal.
Mm-hmm.
And just once you hit that goal, taking the Post-it, like, on your wall, and then taking that Post-it note off.
Yeah, several people did something similar to that where they'll make a list, and the act of crossing that item off the list really was satisfying, so it sort of
So I have an app that I like for lists. It is called, let me see, Paper 53. And so, like, that's my Christmas list, so I really don't want to share it. I can't make it bigger. Okay, so I don't know if you, hold on, I can't see you because I made this big. I can't see myself. Oh, now I'm adding to my list, but I started a new list. I can like pop off as I finish stuff, and I like that because I just check off things as I'm done. Actually, I can check that off. That makes me happy. And that. That's my Christmas list. But I like that as well. And that was a free app. but I do like the post-it note ones. What other ones did you like?
I like Saki Knitter mentioned that she made a project page on Ravelry to keep track of all of her goals, and then she
Hmm.
like updated it several times a year. I like to do something sort of, if I use my project pages the way I wish I did, I think it would be cool to go ahead and start a project page for all the patterns that I intended to do that year,
Yeah,
and then update it as you go. Um, I just don't use my stuff that way, so
I do my owl pages like that.
I like the idea of, and a couple people mentioned this, of sort of setting somewhat arbitrary goals of like, I would like to learn a new sewing skill this year, but not necessarily saying I want to learn how to do buttonholes, because
Yeah,
as soon as you make it specific, a lot of people tend to sort of just, nah, now I want to do anything but buttonholes.
yeah,
So I like the idea of doing it kind of generalizing what you want to do so that you can, it's kind of like Harry Potter, so you can kind of fit what you do into the
yeah.
goal list of what you sort of set out to do for yourself. So I really appreciate everybody's input on that. I did favorite several posts so I can go back when I'm actually making my goals for this year. I did kind of agree within a little text group that I was going to do Spin Your Bin. I probably won't post about it because then I'll never go back and do it. But between
Why
Laura,
don't you do a project page for
I
it?
might.
Because
Um,
I've done that before.
between Laura, Lynn, and Jess, I've got 12 bumps, braids, or bats of fiber
Yeah.
to spin next year. I'm actually gonna,
Leslie told us to go through her stash and tell her what to
mhm,
spin.
because I do have almost all of my stash on Ravelry. That is one thing I try to stick to. There are some things from SSK and Rhinebeck this year that I haven't put in there yet, but mostly it's in there. So, kind of on with that concept, I signed up for an online course from Berta Style. Berta does sewing patterns,
Yeah.
but they also have online classes, sort of interactive ones. They're unlike Craftsy, where you can access them at any point in time and
Uh-huh.
ask teachers questions and stuff. This one is more interactive, one day a week for X amount of time.
Okay.
So I signed up for a course on grading patterns because, especially in this past year, as a lot of my friends have been doing more sewing patterns,
Uh-huh.
a lot of the patterns I really love, but they stop 2 or 3 sizes below where I would need them.
Yeah.
So this class, along with showing you how to grade patterns, also shows you how to create patterns that fit to your measurements in a way that's flattering to you. Like, it shows you how to fit pants to yourself. It
Cool.
shows you how to fit, shirts and leggings and jackets and that sort of thing to your body. So I signed up for that. So we'll see how that
Very
goes. It
cool.
starts in January.
Very, very cool. I hope it's successful for you.
Me too.
Um, so do we want to pull some maybe free patterns from that thread? Give away some free patterns for the people who posted in the crafting goals? Do you want to just gift people who you like their posts or thought their posts were extremely helpful patterns? Let's just do it randomly
Well,
because
let's do it
we had
randomly.
we had some great contributions and there's only 55 posts.
Yeah.
So besides yours. So let's just do that. Let's do, how many do you want to do? 5?
5 sounds good.
So let's do it. If you win, contact. Do you want to take care of it or do you want me to do it? I'm off all week, so I don't really care.
Yeah, let's let Laura do it.
Okay.
It'll get done faster if Laura does
So let's do a pattern up to $8 value.
it. Okay.
It has to be downloadable from Ravelry.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I
That's
guess,
it.
just the basic rules. That's all I got.
We have to be able to gift it to you
Yes.
via Ravelry. And you
In
you can
Ravelry.
tell that by, if you go to the pattern page, there'll be a little present icon up near the buy it.
Yeah, and we'll take care of that. So just send me if you would send me the link to the pattern,
That'd
it
be
would make
great.
you the bestest
Yeah.
person ever, rather than just saying a name.
Okay, so we're gonna pick 5 numbers between 2 and 55 because the first post was mine, I think.
2 and 56.
Oh, I'm sorry, 56. 56. Okay. So the first entry is number 48.
And that is not that. Hold on, I went one too far.
Oh, it's A Simple Homestead. She says, like Leslie, I don't like setting too many goals because I quickly turn to hate them or ignore them. I like to think of a bucket list items instead, which is kind of what I mentioned. She's currently participating in the long-term race to the bottom of her stash. That's pretty
cool.
Pretty cool.
But new stash does not count against her. That's cool.
Oh, there was one who mentioned, like, they measure yardage in versus yardage out. And she mentioned, like, in the 1 year, she had yardage in of, like, 8-point-something kilometers and yardage out of, like, 2-point-something kilometers. And I was like, yeah, that's me. All right, next number. 22. So that's going to be on the first page.
22.
I didn't even realize we were going to do prizes for this.
Yeah, we mentioned it last year. That is Knit 2 Purl 2 Mama.
Oh, cool.
That we came to SSK. So generally I look at what I've started but haven't finished. Either put the project into timeout or was sidetracked by a cow. These are the ones that she puts on the list first. That's smart.
Mm-hmm.
And then she puts items that she knows she wants to knit for Christmas presents. Yes, she starts her Christmas knitting in January.
Wow. She says, of course, this can all go sideways when I see some of the patterns the knit girls are knitting and decide I just have to knit that pattern or cow comes along and I want to do.
That's funny.
Awesome.
All
so
right.
The next number is 19.
Cool. That's just above that.
Yep.
RY Crafty.
Oh, cool.
She said she's pretty terrible at signing up for things and then not participating. I hear you, girl.
Mm-hmm.
She did okay in the House Cup, but then she signed up for Spin the Bin and spent nothing. Now she's doing a brown bag sock club.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw that she does that on Instagram, and her husband labeled the bags for each month, so it was a
surprise for her, yeah.
He like misspelled some stuff on the bags too. It was funny. She did all but 2. So she's gotten 10 skeins of sock yarn knit into socks, which is pretty impressive. And then she says, I wonder how many more years she'd have to do this before her sock yarn. Like
it's like paying off your credit card. Like, you make a payment, but then the interest just accumulates. All right, the next one is number 11, which is T-Knit Purl. She says, I tend to set goals and post them in some of my groups on Ravelry. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. I find I tend to be awesome at self-motivation more so than external. For me, others don't motivate me, I do. I am totally that way.
So let me tell you something about Knit T Purl, or T-Knit Purl, I can't even say it correctly. She's in the House Cup with me, and she is freaking amazing. She was knitting for House Cup a sweater a month, and then doing an owl sweater on top of that.
Oh my god!
And then doing like a sweater for Quiddy. Like, she was knitting 6 sweaters in like 3 months. She's amazing, and she just started learning how to spin. She bought an electric eel wheel, so she is like,
wow.
She does amazing stuff, like super amazing stuff. You'll have to check out all her sweaters.
I just went to look at her page to see if it said anything about like what she did or how she managed to knit all that much, and she's got some bullet points about herself, and one of them is, I'm a big fan of indie dyers and firmly believe you cannot have enough sweater quantities or fingering/lace weight yarn. I'm also selling a bridge if you're interested. All right, last number is 49. So that should be on the second page.
Mm-hmm. Next page. Yeah, she's a cool person. And like Slytherin House reorganized into Manners, and I would never have met her if I hadn't probably met her, but
so this is
lay all that information about you in a stalker-like fashion without knowing her. And this is Celestia 22.
Yeah, she posts in our group all the time.
Yeah, and she's been to SSK.
Mm-hmm.
She came from Canada the 1 year. She's a sweetheart. So she did, she's big in the Bling Your String group, and she did the Crafty Resolution Challenge for Bling Your String.
She sucks at doing selfish knitting. That is the one thing I do not suck at.
She just did a very cool blanket. It might have been for Stash Dash. Now I need to look. But she finished this amazing blanket. Let me find it. Like an Afghan that was huge.
Yeah, she says, starting something insane at the start of the year is good because Stash Dash will inspire me to finish it.
Oh, maybe she didn't. Maybe I'm just making that up. No, she did this Sophie's Universe one that's gorgeous. That's crochet.
Okay, we seriously got to get a move on. We're like,
79 across, 79 inches across.
whoa,
It's amazing.
that's
Like
over 6 feet.
yeah, it's this Afghan. It's so pretty. Anyway, all right. So we are totally. What
So if
else
you
do we
want any of those prizes, give
DM
Laura a
me?
private
Send
message.
me a link to
Hmm.
whatever pattern you want, and I will gift it to you. So craft management, your online course. I will be in DFW in March. Leslie will be at Vogue Knitting Live in New York City in January.
Mid-January.
I'll also probably be going down to Oxford for their Fiber Festival, which is in January, typically January, February. Um,
We'll start a
oh
thread for the ply giveaway.
yes, we are going to do Craft All the Things Knit Along, and it is going to start January 1st, and it is going to go through March 31st, and it is going to be a new to you technique.
And
So
we are going to say it's use your judgment as far as what's new to you. If you did something like you put a zipper in a sweater 20 years ago, but you haven't done it since then, I would say that you could probably consider that new to you because you haven't done it. You basically need to learn it all over again.
yeah, like I did brioche like my second year knitting, one color brioche, and I have not done it since, and I probably did it terribly then. So I would consider brioche a new to me
Yeah.
skill.
So use your own judgment. Please don't ask us if you consider it new to you. That's fine. It's going to be 3 months
Yeah,
long. So
but feel free to ask questions.
yeah. Oh
It'll
yeah.
be from January 1st until March 31st.
Just
But
don't
it's
feel like you have to justify it to us.
yeah,
Is
we're
all I'm
not going to
saying.
go searching your history
No.
to see if you've made 55 cabled scarves
No.
and you want to put cables as your thing. Like, use your own judgment. We
Yeah.
trust y'all. It is going to, we'll have a chatter thread. It's going to run from January 1st to March 31st.
Hmm.
I might actually attempt brioche.
I've been wanting. There's a hat I really want to do in brioche. So
I
primrose, I
might,
think, is what it's called.
and it's a craft all the things, so, which is CATT for short. So it
Hmm.
can be, hey, I've always wanted to learn cross stitch and I've never done
Hmm.
that, or I've never done French knots before and I really want to do something
It
French
can be
knots.
sewing. It can be weaving. It can be tatting. Anything you can consider. It could be cooking.
Yeah,
Anything you consider a craft or that can be considered a craft, you can use.
pottery,
Hmm.
painting. So obviously we're not going to do yardage minimums.
No.
So it can be as big or as small. It's just like the Halloween craft all the things
Hmm.
guidelines. As big or as small as you want it to be. We'll have some awesome prizes and just have fun with
Yeah.
it. I mean, that's the most important thing with our craft all the things. We do them to be inspired by what other people do.
Basically, that all it is us crowdsourcing inspiration. That's all this is. It's like, ooh, that's cool. I want to try that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much why we do it.
But with this one too, like try something new. That's a
Hmm.
big goal for I think both myself and Leslie for this coming year is to try some new techniques that we've never tried before.
Hmm.
So it can be just plying on the fly on a spindle or
Yeah.
spindle spinning. It can be just something very basic. And do not be afraid to post failure pictures.
Oh no, those are the best.
We love failures
Like,
because we learn from our failures.
seriously,
So.
I advertise my failures to several thousand people a week. So I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself, you're never gonna grow.
So yeah, we grow by failing and trying something new and expanding our horizons.
Hmm.
So we will have a new to you technique, craft all the things going on, and like we said, it'll start January 1st. It will end March 31st.
Yep.
It's just something to have fun with. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
If you have any questions, you can PM myself or Leslie, or you can post it in the chatter thread because I'm sure, just like with Stash Dash, if one of you has a question, there'll be tons. And I'll because we're terrible at setting guidelines for things, so if you have a question that we haven't covered, it's probably a good one.
We just don't like to put restrictions on things. Like,
Yeah,
we want you to be inspired and go with your inspiration.
exactly. So we will have a chatter thread, and then I'll do, like, if there's someone who asks the same question multiple times, we'll do a frequently asked questions thread at the top because I'm sure we're forgetting something.
Oh yeah, that's a guarantee. There's never been once we've done something and been perfect the first time.
Stash Dash is so like in flux every year. Like I always forget. I'm like, oh yeah, I meant to say.
Yeah.
But
So
and start planning towards Stash Dash in May. That's gonna be fun too.
yeah. So we want to thank our wonderful supporters on Patreon. Patreon is a website. There's a link on our website. I'll also link it in the show notes where you can help us with costs as far as like postage or production or travel to see each other, or we're trying to get to travel to Oregon to source out some sites for a possible future retreat. Basically, it helps us be able to fund things to make the show more interesting for you. And in that vein, we're going to either today or tomorrow, because Laura's got to go to the post office, but we're going to record something specially for our Patreon supporters. We're going to have Laura go through all of her works in progress. I'm sure there are some that have been there for years.
Well, probably, but I did do the detention one last year, Owl, so it's not as bad as it was.
I don't even know all the stuff she's got on the needles, so I'm excited to see all this. So it may be 20 minutes, it may be 3 hours. I don't know how long it's going to be. So we're going to record that. I'll put it out sometime this week. Anybody that's a Patreon supporter will get a link, and it'll let you know.
Even $1. Yep.
Any amount. So we're trying to think of special things to do for our Patreon people, special episodes, because that doesn't cost us a whole lot to do, and it's really hard to get any physical thing to all of the people who support us. So if you have ideas for other,
although we have thank you cards that we
special
need to
shows, yes, we do have thank you cards. Haven't been done yet. Will be done. But
we actually have the cards now, so that's always a plus.
So, for any of you guys that celebrate Christmas, we hope you have a lovely and Merry Christmas.
We'll be back before the new year.
Oh, look all the progress you've made.
Oh. It's not quite a pair of socks yet.
No, but still it's
Just
progress.
I like how it's cooling.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not certain the gauge is thick enough, but
I think it is. I think it's going to be fine because it's going to stretch like a Murph.
Yeah. I think I'll be alright. Alright. So, we will see y'all next week. It will be probably a Monday or Tuesday episode next week because I will be out of town unless I can convince Rebecca Ann Linneman.
Oh, please! I would love the two Linneman sisters to record, even though she's technically Gusler.
We'll try. If I do, I probably won't take the microphone, so it'll be less fancy.
Still.
Well, maybe I will.
You're taking your car. Take the flipping microphone.
All the equipment. All right.
Okay.
All right. I will talk to y'all later.
Next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.